All right, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl. I'm here with my good friends Dan and Jason and Catherine, and I believe that we're going to have Christina and Sandy on, possibly even Donna. I'm not sure who else is going to jump on here with us today. But we're going to be talking about how to live creatively through the divine feminine. And basically what that boils down to is we are studying the book. Where's my book? We're studying the book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. I don't know if you can see that on the side of my book. Maybe one of you guys want to hold up the book. Let me make sure I'm over here where I can see everybody. Perfect. Awesome, awesome. Anyway, that is by Wayne Dyer, and we're on chapter 6 of this book, and it of course talks about the Tao Te Ching and Wayne's interpretation of it. So this week is about verse 6, which talks about the divine feminine or the feminine mystery of the Tao and that sort of thing. But before we get going with our conversation, I want to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. And for those of you who are watching, you can jump over to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, and on that page you can scroll to the bottom and add your comments and thoughts as we go through this conversation. So yeah, go ahead and introduce yourselves, guys.
Good morning, everyone. This is Catherine Clement here in Boulder, Colorado, and it's a beautiful, cold morning. As the sun came up this morning, I actually had to go outside with my camera and try to get some pictures because the mountains were just rosy. It was really beautiful. Camera didn't capture it, unfortunately, but I have it in my mind. So thank you, everyone, for coming this morning. This should be a good conversation.
I'll jump out. Dan Sisseck here, and I'm kind of like Catherine. I'm here in Vegas, and it's been cold here lately. Don't like it. Want my summer with 110. I'm happiest then. But I'm looking forward to getting into going over the 6th verse and hearing what everybody has to say about that.
Yeah, hey, good Saturday morning, everybody. Jason Roberts here, and I'm looking forward to the discussion again. 6th verse, and Wayne Dyer's Living Creatively. So we'll see what he has to say about that. And it's good to be on here and see everybody else that was able to make it this morning. Good morning, Christina.
Good morning, Jason.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, Christina.
Hey, Christina Ervin here, live in Northeast Tennessee, and excited to have the discussion this morning. Let's get it started.
Awesome, guys. Welcome, welcome, everybody. So if you're hanging out with us and you're watching us live, then jump again to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. Let us know where you are in the world, and if you have studied this book, or if you have thoughts on this particular chapter or verse of the Tao Te Ching, or chapter of Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, and this verse of the Tao Te Ching. So who wants to read the verse this morning to get us going?
I can do it if you want. All right. Okay, the 6th verse goes like this. The spirit that never dies is called the mysterious feminine. Although she becomes the whole universe, her immaculate purity is never lost. Although she assumes countless forms, her true identity remains intact. The gateway to the mysterious female is called the root of creation. Listen to her voice, hear it echo through creation. Without fail, she reveals her presence. Without fail, she brings us to our own perfection. Although it is invisible, it endures. It will never end.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. And so this is a really interesting verse. And you know, if you're on our page, is that you'll see that Catherine shared some very insightful stuff as far as this particular verse goes. And of course, I think that, in my opinion, I think basically this verse is just trying to tell us that that we are, connected to a greater power. I mean, we've talked about this multiple times on our Hangout previously, but that this one is saying specifically about talking about our passions or following our passion, and that the divine feminine or the divine mystery is what guides us along the path of following our passion or following that purpose that we came here for. And when we can listen and tap into that, then we can become more creative, we can be more successful at what we're trying to accomplish, and things flow easily and are able to just, I don't know, you get messages and ideas from the universe that you may not otherwise have gotten if you were just trying to force it to happen. But what do you guys think? I didn't get as much as much insights from this as I did from the last one. I felt like I learned like 15 lessons from the last verse, and this one it just didn't speak to me as much. It was basically just telling me, follow your passion, just do it. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, I think I agree with you, and I would probably say that for me, one of the things that I've been exploring over the last year is literally how to get in tune with that, how to identify that passion. And I literally have come to the point where I think that there are so many things, so many blocks that we have in the way, going back to basically just being present and aware in the moment, being so clear and free that you can get in tune with those things, because we're dealing with so many life challenges, personal traumas and all that stuff, that there's literally a blindness to what that greater thing is that we really want to do. I don't know about if I'm the only one, but literally sometimes it has been a challenge, and it's still a still work in progress to be like, what is that huge, great vision that I really do have? And every time I chip away at one of those life blocks or mindset blocks or heart trauma blocks, then I get closer and closer to that clarity that I'm literally seeking.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, Dan. I wanted to jump out there real quick. That actually reminded me. Not too long ago, Catherine did a wonderful energy clearing session for us to help remove some of those blocks that you're talking about, Christina. And so for you guys who are watching, if you want to get access to that free session, is that there is a link at the top of our page, and there's also a box on the sidebar of our page where you can subscribe to our newsletter and get access to that free clearing session that Catherine did. It was very, very powerful. So just wanted to jump in and let everybody know about that. Go ahead, Dan.
well, I was going to kind of piggyback off what Christina said, because a little bit of some of what my pastor's been talking about at church has been breaking bad habits, but also in amongst that is talking about being still, so we can learn and discern a little bit of some of those things that we need to change. But I think that being still also plays into tapping into, like Christina said, that energy, that feel of chipping away at those core, those things that are blocking you, so you can find out that big grand purpose. And I also took it, when I read this, to also mean that there's constant ideas and things out there in the universe that are just waiting to be shared, and that when you can tap into that, because one of the things I learned, that scarcity doesn't exist. That if you look around, you see all these things out there that you see a McDonald's, you see another McDonald's down the road, you see a Burger King, you see another, and you see that they're a few blocks apart. So, if there was scarcity, you couldn't have that. So, in that sense, that creativity, there's so much out there just waiting to be developed and brought to life, that when you can tap into that time and that energy, that's where a lot of this flows and comes out of. But we're all, like she said, we're all so busy and so tied up, and that's something that I've kind of have realized, that I've been working so much, I've been so busy with so many things and focused, and my mind's been kind of everywhere on those, that I haven't had time to sit down and kind of refresh and tap into that energy so I can find out where I need to go forward. And I think that goes back in some of what you and I talked offline a little bit last week about kind of trying to figure out where I'm headed. So this was a little bit of a helpful eye-opener for me, that I need to really just take some time and step back for me and tap into that.
Oh, good point, Dan. Yeah, and you know, there, tapping into our pure source, so to speak, and we talked about, seeing this newness around us. That's very, it's interesting, because we do seem to kind of clog our lives up with all these blockages, as Christina's saying, and that that clearing that you were talking about, Samantha, helped me to realize that there were some things that I wasn't really paying much attention to in that regard. I sort of, I think that it's sort of like, how we tend to, lose our dreams that we have when we're younger. The dreams of being a certain person, or a certain, living a certain life, and as we go along, our lives are congested with all this other stuff, and we seem to think that we're a culmination of all these things that have happened to us. But I think what this verse is getting at is that, we're, no matter what we go through, we still have that original life essence that maybe they're talking about here. It says in this 6th verse, Lao Tzu refers to an eternal and indescribable force of creation that continuously gives birth to new life. And so, like you said, Dan, I think, if we're made aware of it, like the clearing activities, and just taking that time to have some quiet time with ourselves, that we can get back in tune with that, and knowing that it is a continuously refreshed and new rebirth of these energies constantly, then I think that gives me a little bit of encouragement, and that things aren't always falling apart, but at the same time they are rebirthing and building anew. They're very powerful stuff. What do you think, Christina? Catherine?
That's beautiful what you just said about the things aren't always just falling apart, that they're being created. I mean, if you think about the creation process, there has to be some space there to create something, so our wonderful teacher, Mother Nature, shows us continually about the cycle of creating and destruction, and creating and destruction, and this voice, I think, this verse points out to me, it's sort of pointed out a little bit of the yin yang, the male female aspects. The male aspect is very forward going, very active, very getting things done, and then also part of the destruction process, the male energy is, and then the female energy is more of the sitting back and holding and the creating. But it takes both to create, right? We're co-creators, and amongst, between ourselves and also within ourselves. It's a beautiful verse, and to me it just brings, it's a verse that just brings comfort to me, you know, to just relax and know that everything is happening. You know, we don't have to direct any of it, thank goodness. I don't think any of us would make it more than a couple hours if we had to remember to beat our own heart or take our own breath, you know. I don't think there'd be quite the population on the earth if that was so, and God knew that evidently, and thank goodness those things sort of happen without any attention from us. But this creation process, I'm glad that we have guys on the panel, because you know, this is, it's not a gender male female thing. It's something that we each have within us, these energies. And I would imagine, being male, that you might have a more difficult time, you know, settling into that. Even though I see a lot of females, and myself including, that carry a lot of male energy. You know, I grew up seeing, I was sort of raised by my grandma, who was really strong and very independent, and taught me that. But those are sort of more, not that they're not feminine, but those are sort of more masculine skills about, okay, we're going to go out and work 3 jobs now and get this done, get her done, right? So so I have to remind myself to step back into the feminine, even though I'm female. So that might seem weird, but so I was wondering, for you guys, you know, is it really counterintuitive to you to just sit back and take that space part?
I think for me, in some ways, yes. It's weird. I basically grew up with women as the main model in my life, because my real father divorced my real mother. Then my stepdad abused me and my sister, and along with my real mother. So I grew up with a lot of that. But basically, I've had women in my life that were the strong force. You know, my grandmother was strong, even though she was married 51 years. My aunt, when I moved down and moved in with her, was a very strong person. You know, my sister's one of those strong. You know, so I've seen that all around. So I see that, I understand that better than a lot of guys. But for me to sit back and to not take charge and not charge in just is sometimes kind of, you know, hard for me to just kind of. I love the creative side when I get into those moments. I really get into it, because like I love the violin, I love music, I love those things, but I have to get into that mode. I can't just easily slip into it. So for me, yeah, it's kind of hard too. I feel a lot more comfortable, I think, when I'm just doing all the things. And it's weird the way you were saying it, because when I've read this a little bit, I was looking at it like the male part of it is more the logical, linear, very, you know, to the point, and the creative side is, like it says here, the feminine, the more, you know, taking time to feel, sense, connect, and that's kind of where I'm coming from with that when I see that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So I was
Yeah, I get
thinking
that.
that. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Christina.
So I just wonder if maybe we make this conversation a little bit too meta, if you will, when we go down the line of gender, because I literally think a lot more plays into it than just gender. I think, you know, life circumstances and prepare you for certain things too. For example, someone like me who sort of grew up and has retained that hero complex throughout my life. Literally, that's my first instinct, is to rush in, solve solutions too. But I have a very strong feminine nurturing quality to me too. But I can be quite linear in thought process when it comes to, look, the bottom line is the thing is the thing, and we got a 1, 2, 3, 4 this to solve it, you know. So literally, I'm like a mushed bag of all of that, and I think probably most people are, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I tend to think along the same lines as you, Christina. And I mean, I like that they're trying to, you know, discern the differences between these, creative, logical, emotional, whatnot, by using the different terms. But I don't really think that there's that much of a I don't know. I mean, I don't think that like using feminine, masculine really does it too much justice, because it's like Samantha was saying, we all have we all carry all these traits and can pull out these traits, or use these natural inherent skills that we all have, whenever we need to. But in order to tap into it, we need to be aware of it. And I think that's what this is drawing out, that there's an existence of this force, of this power, this flow of energy, and it's up to us to find it around us and within ourselves, and to tap into ourselves. But to do that, we must be aware and open to it. Don't get caught up in the language of it, but because this is it's an undescribable force, as they're saying. So it's nice to have these words to sort of give us a coloring to it, but I don't think we should be too hung up on that. That's just my thoughts.
I agree, as far as, we all have different aspects of ourselves, as far as our, intuitive versus logical. I think that, we all have different levels of each of those. And I think that this verse, when it talks about the mysterious feminine and the root of creation and all of that, I don't know, we kind of have to think back and remember that this was written by, a man like how many thousands of years ago, I mean, and it's been translated, since then, obviously. But I think that, when we're talking about the divine feminine and the mysterious feminine and all that, that's more symbolic of that aspect that is typically related to femininity or women in general. It's like, I mean, if you think about the different gender roles that people have been brought up with, is typically the man is is the tough person, he's the provider, he's supposed to suppress all of his emotions and think logically, and then the female is the one that is the homemaker and the nurturer, and the one that has those intuitive feelings and is connected with their emotions and all of that kind of thing. And of course, throughout the centuries, and especially in the past 100 years, is that now these roles have been, intertwined, and so we have both of those in all of us now. And so, some people, I think, that they're more intermeshed than other people, but yet at the same time, when we're talking about this divine feminine side, it's kind of like telling us that, when we tap into this more intuitive side of us, is that we can also tap into the more creative side of the Tao, or of the universal energy, or whatever you want to call it. And I think it's just kind of trying to remind us of that. Christina, I thought it was interesting earlier when you were talking about the blocks and how kind of struggled with, knowing what your purpose is and that sort of thing. And I think that a lot of people are like that. I always thought it was so odd, or I don't know if it's necessarily odd, but like those people who were just so driven. It's like one out of 50 people was like driven, and they knew what their purpose was, they knew what career they wanted to be on, and they just like kicked ass in school, and they kicked butt in college, and they just go, and they're like, they become this super surgeon or whatever, and they just knew. And I'm like sitting there going, I have no freaking clue. You know, I never felt like I really knew what I wanted to do. You know, I had things that I was interested in a little bit. You know, I mean, when when I was in high school, I was interested in animals. You know, I volunteered at the zoo, and then, you know, when I got out of school, I worked in a dog kennel, and then I eventually became a groomer, and I had my own business, and all kind of went down that path. But as I was going through it, even though I had an interest in animals, I didn't feel like I was super passionate about it. And when I did retire, it was kind of like I retired from that, and I was done with it, never looked back twice. You know, so even though I spent a lot of time in that industry, I didn't feel like I was really passionate about it. But yet, if somebody looked from the outside in, they probably would have thought that I was, you know, just because I did really well in that, right? And so, I mean, I know where you're coming from as far as just not being sure. I've felt that way for a lot of time, a lot of my life, of just not knowing, you know. And it's only been within the past couple of years that, you know, when I started, you know, reading a lot of personal development and doing meditation, that I've started to realize some of my deeper drives that have kind of pointed me throughout my life, even though they weren't exactly what I would say my passion is. It's kind of like the things that drive me are not necessarily specific. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like, you know, I mean, in some ways, if somebody has a passion and they know they want to be a doctor, that's like one specific career path per se. We'll just say career path for simplicity purposes. And I've never felt like my drive has anything to do with a specific outcome of activity, if that makes sense. It's been more of a thing that drives all of everything that I do. So, like, my desire to help everybody connect through this mastermind and learn more. It's been this like inner drive of knowing that if we grow more, is we can become more, and we can all help each other. And it's like that kind of a drive. It's not like I have this idea out here of, you know, I'm going to be a I don't know, motivational speaker and all of that kind of thing. It's not that. It's, I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? It's kind of weird, I guess.
Totally get what you're saying. I don't know if you and I have been on the same channel this week or what, but I totally get what you're saying. And so I'm just going to go another step further. I'm going to take us another step further, y'all. Listen, I've been thinking this week, I'm like, what is it? You know, I can't put my finger on it, quite put my finger on it. But here's what I think. Going back to that whole, everything's like an amalgamation of stuff, right? You're just a big mush of stuff. Literally, you said something that for me is a key, and that's not knowing. I think it's a combination of not knowing and fear. See, because for someone like me, and I'm sure most of us, you know, I don't know everybody's ages or whatever, but I'm certainly not a spring chicken. I'm kind of in that middle, right? But for some of us, like our parents, their parents, you know, going back, you were taught to do the sure thing, to do the less risk thing. It was very risk-averse mindset, right? There was very risk-averse, even when it come to faith. You feel me? So for me, very success-oriented, very goal-oriented, all my life I competed in sports at a high level, earned a full basketball scholarship to a Division I school. But like everybody thought, she just loves her athletics, and because she's always practicing and she's always playing. No, I hated it. Okay, it was a means to the end of me being able to afford some education, right? I didn't really love it to the extent that I used to look at people on my team who had nowhere near the natural given gifts that I had, right? But they played it with everything in them, and they oozed it, and you know, they just loved it. You could tell. And I would think to myself, if I could just get to that level of passion for this, I would be dangerous because I'm this good now, right? I say all this to say, sometimes you do things because it seems less risky and you can see a clear path. For some people, when you're raised, when you get that nugget early in life, that you have to be a little more methodical, a little more careful, because you want to steer clear of consequence. And sometimes, and parents do that. They don't. It's not meant to hurt the child, right? You're trying to protect your child. But I remember Grant Cardone was talking about one day, being on a flight, and his daughter was like, "Daddy, I want some cookies," and he was like, "Well, all these people on this plane, go ask for some cookies, right?" Most parents are like, "Stay away from strangers," and he's like, "No, go talk to that stranger, get you some cookies," right? Because it's about the risk aversion, the fear that we begin to build up. If I can't see the clear path, I'm afraid of that thing, and I'm afraid of that. So therefore, I want to bury my head in the sand because I don't want to see something that isn't clear. I don't want to take a step toward something that is not clear. I don't know what's on the other side. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Karen's put a comment on the page. Let me read it real quick. She says, the mystery of the divine feminine speaks to us from within her creation. She is not a distant God in heaven, but a presence that is here with us, needing our response. She is a divine returning to claim her creation, the real wonder of what it means to be alive. We have forgotten her, just as we have forgotten so much of what is sacred, and yet she is always a part of us. But now she needs to be known again, not just as a myth, as a spiritual image, but as something that belongs to the blood and the breath. She can awaken us to an expectancy in the air, to an ancient memory coming alive in a new way. She can help us to give birth to the divine that is within us, to the oneness that is all around us. She can help us remember our real nature. And then she puts a link here for whenthesoulawakens.org. So I'm not sure if you've quoted that from there or not, Karen, but I really love that. Then she also says, I like having this distinction pointed out. There's so much we've forgotten, and I can feel that this is true for me. She needs to be known again, hallelujah, as something belonging to the blood and breath. She can awaken us, help us give birth, and help us remember. I need that. I claim that. Thank you. That's awesome, Karen. And, and I think that, what we're all talking about here is, being reconnected to that, like trying to reconnect to that inner guidance. And that's what this verse speaks to. But yet, what Christina was saying is that whole fear side of us holds us back, right? And Sandy put in a comment down here as well, and I love this, Sandy, by the way. I'm sorry you weren't able to get on here this morning. Sandy says, some of what came up for me while I was reading this verse. She says, I was reminded of an earlier verse discussion where we talked about how during the 9 months in the womb, everything we need is provided and taken care of. We don't need to force anything or worry about anything. We just be, and all is provided. The divine feminine reminds me of that, receiving, being in the receptive state, and in that state, our true nature is naturally there without force, without thinking it over and over, without worrying. After reading Wayne's commentary, whatever you feel compelled to do it with your unique flair. Being creative means trusting your inner calling. Oops, the page jumped down. Ignoring criticism or judgment. And then she goes on to say, I had written a note in the book next to this, me writing my book, as she was saying that this is what she's going to do. She's had a calling to write a book for at least a couple of years now, but I always seemed to stop myself in the process. First of all, because I was told many times as a child that writing is not my strength, math was. So I always thought I'm not a good writer. Recently, I have started outlining and brainstorming on my book. What I realized brought me excitement was doing it my way. I always started to panic when I thought of how it needs to be a certain structure and written in a certain style, like, the normal way books are written. When I let that go and my idea came in, I felt excitement because it's coming from that creative place in me, and I realize now my book will be more of an art piece, original in its own style, mine. Whether it's considered a good book or not by critiquers and bestseller book people and publishers doesn't really matter anymore, because the way it will come out will be me, genuine, and that's all that matters. Since this realization, I am much more motivated to create my book. It's like that child in me who probably had this idea a long time ago, but was long gone once society says you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not good at this, blah, blah, blah. And then she says, apply your uniqueness to everything you undertake. And, I thought I'd share that because, that's exactly what happens with all of us, is that fear comes in and it gets in the way of our creativity. Just like Christina was talking about, is that, when we have that, all of these things that everybody is telling us, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do this, or you can't, or whatever. What's another one they say? Get your head out of the clouds. Things like that. When in reality, that's exactly where we need to be. If we want to live a passionate and purposeful life, is that we need to follow that inner voice that's telling us, hey, do this. This is what you feel good about. This is what you like doing. And when we were kind of talking about the difference between what I was talking about, as far as that, it doesn't necessarily have to be one specific thing. Like with Sandy, she's talking about writing a book, and what drives me is making connections between people and helping each other grow and that sort of thing. So it's not like a specific one thing result. It's more of what brings out my passion is helping people in this way. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but yeah, somebody else jump out. I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, after hearing, sorry, Christina, didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry. After hearing what, Sandy wrote, I hadn't really read her comment, but I kind of resonate with her in that, because I kind of, like you, the fear and what Christina was saying, that kind of, hate to admit it, kind of runs my life because of what I've been through growing up and things like that. I don't want to ever be in a place where I can't kind of control what's going on, so that way I know where it's coming from. I know, so I've always done things to kind of mitigate the risks and things like that. But yet deep down, I have a really, some from when I was a kid, and some things that are kind of bubbling back up again now, just in over the last few weeks, over some of the things we covered, that I realized there are certain things I love and enjoy doing, and that is kind of like you, Samantha. I kind of like helping people expose their own dreams and desires and what they have, and what, kind of helping focus them on things like that. I get something out of that. It feeds me. But the other part is getting back into, I really love the violin, and I really, for a long time, I wanted to get back in and relearn it and really start replaying it again. But I've been afraid to do that because I don't have the time and the energy, the money, and so all the things that go into that. So I've kind of let that overtake me and say, okay, and going through this discussion is opening me back to the prospect of stepping back, connecting, and realizing, if I step into that and trust and believe that whatever comes out of that is what is truly what was meant for me, kind of like Sandy, I don't care what the rest of it comes out. It will feed me for what I need to be fed with. So I think this chapter and this verse is kind of, and what we're talking about, help bring that out for me. So yeah, I liked what Sandy said.
I don't know, Kareem. Hey, Kareem, thanks for jumping on. Did you have something you wanted to add before I jump back in? I've been talking a lot. You're on mute, Kareem. So while he's fixing his mic, let me just say that I lost my train of thought. I had like 3 trains of thoughts that went through my head. Over the past year, and those of you on the panel, like I've been going through this journey where I made the decision to invest in me, and literally, I'm going to be doing a Periscope on that later on this week or later on today. But there's 2 things that came out that just popped in my head. and that is you gotta make a decision, and then you gotta take some action, right? And when you do that, you find yourself growing or moving forward. One thing for me over this past year that has been such a liberation is connecting with the God voice in me, so that I don't look externally for validation. I don't look externally for all these directions. I'm not succumbing to all of the outside things that literally help keep you in the chaos where you're not really understanding.
Yeah, we hear you now. We're going to let Christina finish talking, and then you can jump in. Awesome.
Where I'm not really understanding, or I'm not really in tune with what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what my desires are, what my passions are. The more that I've gotten more invested in looking to that thing inside me that God's already put inside me, it's funny how much more clear things are, and how much less fear seems to hold me back. Now there are those moments, we're human, where like fear comes in, and you're like, oh gosh, like it just happened to me the other day. I was like, oh no. I was like, oh wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Like I got this. I have a plan inside me already. Fear go on somewhere, because here's what I'm gonna do. This is the path forward, and I've already got the answers inside me. And I just feel like maybe if we can help people move to the point where they trust in themselves and what they already have in them, then fear won't have the ability to move or stagnate us as much as it does.
Did you have something you want to add?
Awesome. Yeah, I really like that, and I apologize for bunning. I was having issues with Google Hangouts. I'm not sure what was going on. But anyway, yeah, I really like what you said there, Christina, because I grew up when I was getting up. My parents were very, very strict about what I could and couldn't do, what I could and couldn't say. So were my teachers, and they always wanted to kind of box in my ideas in this little box. And as I got older, I started seeing the world and seeing how other people interacted, and kind of just meeting people like you, doing my own thing, doing just different things, going to different places, and really seeing that it wasn't just one way of thinking, one way of living, and that I could control who I was going to be and what I was going to do.
I wish I could remember this lady's name. I watched a video earlier in the week, and she's a well-known public speaker, motivational, inspirational, person. And she was talking about how for her entire motivational speaking career, she's been up there telling people, you have to find your why, and that, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to be focused on this, and da-da-da. And she had a woman write to her, wrote a letter to her. I'm gonna have to find the video, and I'll put it in the comments on the page so you guys can see it, because I won't do it service here. But she had a lady write her basically and say, what you said on that stage made me feel worse than I have ever felt about myself in my entire life, and this is why. And when she got that letter, because usually she gets letters about, oh, you're so great, and blah, 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 but she got this letter, and it like literally changed her life. She had to take a step back and think about things a little differently. And what she realized is that some of the most amazing people that she knows are not people that knew what their purpose was and just went from kindergarten, for the rest of their life with this drive and this focus on this one thing. They were the people that went this way and that way and this way and that way, and all those experiences, those life experiences, are what made them the incredible people that they are. So I'll find that video because it's very touching, and very encouraging to those of us that didn't necessarily weren't born with our purpose. One thing, you know, that we've kind of gone this way and that way. Like, I was a nurse for 20 years. I was not one of those little girls that always wanted to be a nurse. I wasn't even into dolls, taking care of dolls when I was little. I was outside climbing trees and jumping my bike over stuff and running into trees and, you know, good stuff. But I was a nurse for 20 years because I had 2 children and we were starving. And working minimum wage jobs just wasn't putting food on the table. And so I stepped into that very masculine part of myself. I pulled that part out and said, okay, we got to do this now. We got these kids to feed. And I went to school, and I mean, I excelled in school, not because I love school and I want to excel in school, but I had to make straight A's so that I got the scholarships so that I could go to school, you know. So it was all, there was this carrot at the end of the stick that I was following, you know. And then when I made it through school and I became a nurse, I did it for the next 20 years because it was the safe thing to do. There was no risk involved there. I mean, yeah, obviously risk as far as a nurse and liability and stuff, but it was a well-respected career. It was there was always more work than what I could do. I could work 3 jobs. I could work 6 jobs if I had the time, because there's, you know, shortage in nursing. So, but looking back, it was the safe thing to do. And during that whole 20 years, I had all these dreams. I was receiving still all these dreams that I wanted to do, but I wasn't going after them because I already had this very safe thing that provided a roof and good food for my kids, you know. So that's why God threw me off a horse, and I've had to reevaluate my whole life, you know. But it's really another thing about the feminine. If you want to think about it, feminine is often gosh, I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, depicted maybe as a vessel, you know, as a whole, like a bowl, and that collects, if you think about a bowl, it collects you know, like messages from the ethers, and it's more receptive. You know, we really have to learn how to receive. We're always in this let's do this, we got to do this, we got to do this, and that's why meditation or, you know, prayer or whatever you want to call it, to me it's all pretty much the same thing. When you're, except maybe meditation, you're a little bit more on the receiving. I think of prayer as being more on the asking side, but you can receive during prayer for sure. So but if we can just keep that in mind, especially those moments when we're just you know, and your computer's messing up and 12 things have gone wrong and you just want to bang your head against the wall. During those moments, if we can just remember to breathe and be receptive to God will always show us the way out of it, you know, if we are open enough to listen. So, but we just have to take those moments to listen. We're always in such a time rush. Have you noticed we always get things done, though?
I noticed we're always in a time rush. When you were saying that, I had to think of my teacher, because I've taken a course, and one problem I had, I was always coming from in here. I was always coming from the, like, I got to do this, and do I have chicken at home, and oh, I got to get on the mastermind, and then I have to do 6 other things. And eventually I would just sit there and get burn out every day and every day. And he said, you're working with this analyzer. Well, what do you mean by analyzer? You're looking at everything as an analytical, scientific, I got to do this. If I don't do this, then I'll be having. He said, try and get into your explorer And what he means by explorer simply is that instead of coming from a head space, you come from an emotional space, and then you're not sitting there thinking, oh man, do I have to go grocery shop? Oh, I have to do this too, and if I don't do this, and if I don't get on the mastermind, it's like, okay, I'm gonna enjoy my day. I'm gonna find experiences that I can be part of, that I'll enjoy, and that I can give other emotions to other one. And people can see when you're super stressed and super rushed, and people can see when you're being in the moment. I know people pick up on that all the time and say, like, Kareem, you got a lot on your mind, especially the females in my life will be able to tell if something's wrong. I don't know how. It just that's how. But I did want to also mark on your point that when I was 18, I was given three options. It was either the military, college, or like tech school, and I didn't want to do military or tech school, so I went to college because it was the safe route. Because I thought if I didn't do that, I'd be at Mickey D's and there were no other options. And lo and behold, I wish I could go back and tell myself, hey, you could do a blog, you could do a podcast. We have this thing called the internet now. You can actually make an income from it. I'd be like, what? No, I have to get a degree. I'm like, no, slow down. And I got stuck in the same, not for the same reasons, but I got stuck in the same circumstances because I was coming from that analyzer mode, thinking, oh, if I don't go to college, I'm not going to have an income. That's it.
I think that fear is one of the things that gets in our way more than anything. And of course, in one of the previous chapters, we were talking about expectations, and expectations are what kind of create this fear. You know, we expect that if we're going to do something, you know, it has to provide for us, it has to, you know, it has to help take care of our family, it has to this, that, the other, and all those things. And if we think that whatever we're actually passionate about isn't going to meet those expectations, then we keep ourselves from doing it, and we stop ourselves from doing the things that, you know, we actually feel like we want to do. You know, just like Dan was talking about, wanting to get back into the violin. And, you know, and he's probably thinking, you know, violin, how in the world am I supposed to make an income from that? You know, how can I turn that into my you know, purpose and my income and all of that kind of thing? And, you know, the thing that comes up for me, and just like when Catherine was talking about that video and the woman who was talking about the why, and of course we hear in the home business industry a lot, is that whole, you know, your why has to make you cry. Well, you know, I get this kind of, I think it's all expectations, you know, when we sit here and we say, you know, if you're following your passion and you have a powerful enough desire and you have all this oomph behind you, and you know, and somehow or another you're just going to turn it into an income, but yet at the same time I think a lot of people get hung up on that, well, turning it into an income, right? And so that becomes this expectation, and if you don't meet it right away, then you're feeling like a failure. But yet, in that, you know, in the comment when Sandy was talking about her book and how when she finally just kind of released those expectations of it being whatever and focused entirely on what her feelings are and her desires and what she enjoyed doing as far as the writing the book goes, is that all of a sudden then all of that pressure was released, all of that fear, all of the expectations, all of those were let go, and she was able to just let that creativity flow through her and get the enjoyment from doing that, right? And so if we can maybe separate and not worry, I mean, I think this is what this verse is kind of trying to tell us, is that, you know, just follow our creative intuition and remember that you're taken care of. Now, granted, at the beginning, when you start following your passion, you may have no idea where that's going to go. It may never turn into an income. It may just be a hobby that you pursue that you just absolutely love and you can't get enough of. And that's what helps you get through the rest of your life, where you have to have that job and you have to do with the stress and you have to do all that other kind of crap, you know. You know, I was reading a book by Wayne Dyer that's called I Can See Clearly Now, and it's kind of like his memoir. And he talks about this time in his life where he had all these demands on him. He was a college professor, so he had, classes and hundreds of students that were constantly, chewing his ear off and trying to get with them. And then he also was, he also had patients for his psychology. Had psychology patients, and then he had his family and had all these different things. And so a lot of the time he had so many things demanding on him that he felt completely overwhelmed. And one of the things that he would do was he would just take a walk outside and go sit on this big rock out by this little pond in the college campus or whatever, and he would just sit there and meditate, for he'd take his hour break, and that's what he would do. And that would help clear out some of that, stress stuff, because he was ultimately, in a lot of ways, he was following his passion, but he had all this minutia that was getting in the way of it. And so that just centering himself and meditating and remembering, okay, the things that I'm doing that I am passionate about is what helped him get through all the rest of the crap. So I don't know, that's my thought on it. What do you guys think?
Well, let me just say, 'cause I guess we're coming to the top of the hour and it's time to wrap up. So I'll just start my little wrap up, if it's okay with everybody. I was reading the comments on the page, and let me just say, Karen, it is awesome to be able to be on this morning. So I appreciate it. I'm glad. I'm happy to be here. I would have responded, but I got a little technical thing going on with the comments. But yes, to answer your question about being a mushed bag and accepting the mushed bag thing, more than that, what I'm encouraging everybody to do is to embrace the beauty that is them and be more them. See, when we get to that point where we're willing to be more of who we are, when we're not afraid of actually finding out who we are, when we're okay with saying, there's some more, I got to learn to get to know who I am, and wake up every morning and reintroduce yourself to yourself and be good with that, what I'm saying is embrace that, because that mushed bag that you are is beautiful, and that mushed bag that you are is your greatness. It's not the person to the left, to the right, behind you, or around you. It's your greatness. And in that, going back to what Corinne was saying, exploring that. And for exploration, for me, it's not at an emotional level so much as it is a faith in that God in me. Getting back to that will lead me to that greater vision, whatever it may be. I won't be afraid to tackle that. I won't be afraid to take that journey. And I think that's what I'm really kind of communicating to everybody today.
And I was going to say that mush bag that you're talking about, I guess it's kind of funny I'm referring to myself as a mush bag, but we all have a unique one of skills and different stuff. It's what I'm learning, and ideas and thoughts and emotions. So that's the great thing about the bag. We all have a different set of treats in there, for using that analogy.
I'll just say that thank you, everyone, for coming, and Karen, for your lovely messages. I can't open up more than one thing or it crashes my computer. I'll have to look at it afterwards, and I'm going to have to go back and watch the replay so I can hear the answers to the question that I asked before it crashed. But what I've found is when I'm trying to do things from my mind, that I hit a lot more barriers. It's a lot more frustrating. It's challenge after challenge after challenge. Whereas when I just open myself to the possibilities, or even when I'm in one of those moments that I'm frustrated, if I just say, okay, what are the possibilities here? How can I do this? Instead of I can't do this, if I can just say, how can I do this? And then I listen, I'll be told. And the way that Spirit guides me when I'm trying to do it my way, there's a lot of effort involved, and it's exhausting sometimes, But when I'm inspired to do something, when that is, put in my heart by Spirit, and I'm inspired by that, I can work almost 24 hours a day and not be tired. Like, I'm so full. Like, I was up late last night because I was just so, finally I was like, you have to be on that thing in the morning. You gotta get some sleep, you know. But I'm just so inspired right now, and I think that it may not be just one thing. It may be a bunch of things for you, but when you're following that inspiration, that passion, then life just flows, you know. So you just are filled with energy all the time, and that fear goes completely away. Or it might be there, like, until you take that first action step. But once you take that first action step, if you just keep taking those action steps, that fear will just go away. And if that fear continues to stay with you, and it's just a real challenge to keep doing these things, then take that quiet time, you know, and really find out, really look deep inside yourself and see if maybe you're trying to do things from up here instead of from your heart. That's it. I'm out. Peace out. Have a great week.
I'll jump out with my last couple thoughts, and I think I'm going to piggyback off of what Christina and Catherine said, and going back to something I heard about one of the founding fathers of how praying meditation, I think, you know, I heard it as praying, but it could have been meditating too, how in the morning he would get up early in the morning, take like an hour to pray and stuff, and, you know, and then go do the same thing at night. And basically, and I'm thinking, well, how did you get enough sleep? And how, you know, because it was like later at, you know, like 4 in the morning or whatever, and then at 10 or, you know, something at night. And I'm like, how did you get to sleep? But then hearing what you guys were saying, it was in taking that time to get away and re-energize and reconnect and connect with the purpose, whatever they were, you know, set out for. I think it was one of our former presidents. It gave them that ability to see what the purpose was and see what needed to be done, and gave them that direction. But by taking that time to just sit and be still or quiet or pray or meditate, you know, that's what did it for them. And I think I'm realizing that more and more for myself, because yes, I'll pray, yes, I'll do things, but am I being effective in that, even in really taking the time to let that come back into me, so then that way I can, you know, take it and put it to what I need to do for moving forward. So I think in that, this discussion has helped me kind of take a new look at those things I've heard and try and reapply them in my life, to take that time to connect and hear, so that way I can hear and continue moving forward on the journey I've started, like within the last 3.5 years or so, and maybe finally get somewhere.
That's great,
Just
Dan. I just want to jump out real quick. I know everybody needs to go and stuff, but I just want to say, you know, like what you all are saying, I mean, that's resonating me, you know, really well. I think kind of comes down to just, you know, are we living within constraints at all the time? Are we living, or are we living, you know, our days looking at all the possibilities, and what is it that we're focusing on, you know? And I like this verse and the idea that, you know, this energy is being replenished within us and around us, and if we just tap into it, if we're open to it, you know, we can give ourselves a rebirth every day if we need to, and just tap into it. So it's great to be here, and I always look forward to these weekend discussions. I hope everyone's having a great time. It's great to see everybody on. What do you have to say, Kareem?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, Dan, don't worry, you'll get there. But more importantly, about getting there, just take it one day at a time and try and enjoy the journey. Don't be like, I gotta get to the destination right now, because the destination you'll get there with being persistent. But if you can't enjoy the journey, think of it as working out. If you can't enjoy, you know, the workouts you're doing, if you can't enjoy every day of what you're doing before you get there, it's not going to be enjoyable.
That's a great point, Kareem, and I think that that kind of goes back to the whole, expectations is to remember that we can go on this journey on a daily basis and be coming from our mind and have it be hard and difficult and frustrating and feeling like you're trying to force something to be happening. Or you can just follow whatever your passion is and not worry so much about the outcome and just know that whatever happens is the best thing for you. And of course, when we stay focused on what is making us happy in the moment, what is fulfilling our internal drive in the moment versus worrying about this outcome. Just like when Sandy was talking about now that she's writing her book and she's just being creative and having that flow naturally and that letting go of whatever the outcome is that now it just feels wonderful. And I was reminded of a comment I saw on a blog the other day that I don't even remember what the blog post was, but this one particular guy was talking about, I quit my day job because I was working, 13, 14 hours a day, and it was killing me. And he said, but now here I am following my passion. And I think he has a blog and some online business or whatever. And he says, I was sitting at my computer the other night. My wife came in, and she's like, are you planning on coming to bed today? And he looks at the clock, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and he'd been working since early in the morning. And he's like, it just dawned on me that it wasn't the amount of time I was spending in my job. It was the fact that I wasn't doing what I love. Now that I do what I love, I work all day, and I don't even notice it. So I'm just like, that's awesome. But anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. I love what everybody has to say. I appreciate you all so very much. And for those of you who are watching, I just absolutely appreciate those of you who have left a comment. And even if you haven't left a comment, we appreciate you anyway. If at any point in time anybody wants to jump on here and be a part of the panel and be live on the discussion with us, just send me a message. You can usually find me easiestly, is that even a word? Listen to me. It's the easiest way to get to me is on Facebook and sending me a message over there. And if I don't respond right away, it may end up in my, the Facebook spam folder or whatever. Just comment on something on my page and tell me you sent me a message. So with that, guys, have a great day. Awesome, amazing weekend. Please like our video, share it with anybody who thinks it could benefit from it. Add your thoughts after watching this to our blog post and tell us what you think and what experiences you've had relating to this amazing book that we're reading, which is Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Living the Wisdom of the Tao by Wayne Dyer. We're enjoying it, and we know you will too. So with that, we'll see you next week. Bye for now.